Now, no woodworker likes to admit that they make mistakes when they're building cabinets, but it happens, especially when you do custom cabinets and you know, when you're just making cuts that you haven't made before and it's not a repetition thing yet. And it could be just you know, a miscalculation in measurement. In my case, it just could be an epidemic of stupidity that happens and I got caught up in it. But what happened on this case here is that these are going to be drawers in here. So these shelves are basically just spacers. So when I made the dados here, on my dado blade, I have shims that go in between things to make it a little thicker. Now, the plywood that I used to measure with was actually plywood thickness, which is slightly less than about 1/32 less than 3/4. But this particular plywood is actually 3/4. So when I went to put this all in there, it's not going to fit. So what I did was I went back in and I made the grooves a little wider, basically I was doing the 1/4 inch groove in the back here, so I used that and made them a little bit wider, which worked on everything except this particular one here. And I don't know why, but I took like over a 1/16 of an inch off on it, which was just way too much. And so it left quite a bit of gap up here. So I spared you all the profanity that happened right after that. But what I did was I decided that the main point is right up here in the Purple Heart up at the front here, these caps. I want them to fit nice and tight so that we don't have any gaps. So I took a piece of Purple Heart, 3/4 inch piece of Purple Heart, a nice thin piece, a 1/16 inch wide piece, and I glued it in right here along this bottom. That way the bottom is less likely to be noticed than the top. And once it's glued in here, what I did was I used a piece of plywood to hold it, and I had a longer piece, and you'll see in the video. And while the plywood was in there, after the glue was dry, I used my pull saw and made a nice flush cut on it. And I'll sand this down a little bit too. But I left it proud in the front so that way I can sand it when everything's all together and it will blend in really well. So this was the most important part, to make sure that it was a nice tight fit. So by having it a little bit bigger, I used my file and filed it down until this fit in there, you know, a nice snug fit there. And so that way it's not noticeable. And this looks really good up front now. And it will look even better once everything's all glued together and sanded. But I do have the problem of this gap all the way back here. Now again, this is not resting on anything, so I could just, you know, wedge in here and that would work perfect. But what I did was I had some 3/4 inch maple and I cut a 1/16 inch strip on my bandsaw, which fortunately I have a bandsaw that I can do that with. And what I will do is I'll slide this right on in here when I glue everything up and glue it right to this piece of wood. And that will give it enough support here so that nothing's going to be moving, and this will all be nice and tight there. So that's the way it's going to fit. And this is going to be a drawer that's coming in here, so you're never going to see this part right here. Another reason why I use the open framework here is that we're not going to see that. So, like I said, I don't generally show my mistakes on there. I do seem to make them, well, not every once in a while, but enough to be frustrating. But I thought it would be a good idea to show you how I fix them rather than cut a new piece. Now I do have a couple pieces that are right over there that are all set to go, and I could have actually recut this whole thing. But the Purple Heart and the maple is kind of expensive. You don't have to recut it. It's better that you don't, and just fix your mistakes. So this is how I fixed this particular mistake with too wide of a dado groove in here so that everything fits tight. So hopefully that helps you in your work, and if you make a mistake, you can think of ways to fix it similar to this so that you don't have to throw away the whole thing or, you know, start all over, which is always better than, you know, it's always better to fix if you can rather than start over, and it saves you a lot of money that way. So hopefully you found this helpful. If you did, please subscribe and like the video, and let me know in the comments below if you have any ideas or fixes of your own, and don't be afraid to post pictures with it too.